A very good day to Dr. Siti Suhaida and my fellow classmates. I'm LILAVATHIDEVI and I'll be presenting about my reflection on teachers' belief system. Firstly, for introduction, I believe that teachers make their classroom decisions based on their beliefs, and it eventually helps them to develop their own way of teaching. First of all, what are the qualities of an effective teacher? There are several qualities of an effective ESL teacher that I believe are significant. Firstly, an effective ESL teacher must be professionally competent in English. This is because only when the teacher is competent enough, he or she will be able to educate the students effectively. Next, an effective teacher should be able to develop proper relationship with their students. So, an effective teacher should be able to differentiate them correctly and build a proper relationship, educate them according to their level of understanding. A good relationship will also ease the students to ask questions and share with their teacher. Moving on, I believe about English language. English, in my opinion, English is not difficult to learn other than other languages. Primarily, this is because most of the TV shows, best-selling books, famous movies, and music are in English. So English is known worldwide, and we tend to hear and read it frequently, and it is incorporated in our daily life. And grammar is the most difficult aspects for me because it has tricky rules and many exceptions, and there is also a difference between the grammar of my first language and the second language, English. So it was hard for me to learn at first. Next, I would say English is a very important language because it is known as a global language and also lingua franca. It is important to acquire English because it is an international language and it can help us anywhere around the world to communicate with others. However, it is not important to speak in English with native-like pronunciation. I believe that it is important to focus on the speaker's pronunciation rather than the accent. Next, moving on to beliefs about learning. So, in my opinion, learning means continuous process of gaining or looking for knowledge, values, behaviors, or attitudes, which is a result of teaching or own experience. So there are several ways to learn a language. Firstly, communicate with native speakers is an opportunity to practice themselves with proper pronunciation. Other than that, they can also learn the culture of the targeted language. Next, read more on the targeted language. There are a lot of books from different genres published around the world. So books can help us to learn about grammar rules and sentence structure. Thirdly, teach yourself. So why do I say so is because there are many reliable sources in internet for you to learn new stuff. So I believe that in this modern technology, students can watch videos and movies for pronunciation, Google search for grammar rules, and also practice speaking to themselves. I also believe in out-of-school exposure with several elements included, which are reading, watching films, and social media. Reading books related to our outside world, watching films, and also interacting with others through social media can help learners to know the real life issues happening around them. Next is my preferred learning style. So I prefer concrete learning style because I want my students to be curious, spontaneous, physically active, and willing to take risks during their learning process. And next, the fifth point is the learning strategies. I believe in 3 different types of strategies. Metacognitive strategies will help my learners to control their own learning through organizing, planning, and evaluating. Meanwhile, affective strategies will help to control their emotions and attitudes to avoid distraction. And finally, social strategies will help them to communicate with me and their peers. And the 6th point for beliefs about learning is the role of students. So I want my students to be an active participator during the classroom activities, and I want them to take up responsibilities about their own learning so that they can raise an awareness about learning. Finally, I want them to play a role as a teacher. I want them to teach and review their peers' work so that their peer can learn and also they can learn. The next slide, beliefs about teaching. So, I would define teaching as a determined way of sharing knowledge, experiences, qualities, and helping someone understand something they don't know. So personally, I see myself as a facilitator who provides necessary scaffolding to my students and monitors their progresses. I would implement two teaching methods that I think the best, which are learner center method and interactive or participative method. Through learner center method, I'll be able to know their perspective of my students' perspective about teaching and learning. And through the interactive and participative method, I'll be my students can analyze their problems on their own. Next, moving on to the fourth point, which is resources. Digital resources, in my this is because students nowadays are more interacted and interested in technology as it is attractive, has many features and colorful. So I would use YouTube for videos, PowerPoint for presentations, Kahoot for online quizzes. And I will also use textbook. This is because I want to use textbook for literature, poems, novels, and short stories. Moving on to the fifth point, effective teaching. I believe that effective teaching is when the teacher can use his or her knowledge, experience, qualities to contribute to the student's goals and achievement. Okay, how do I teach grammar? So in my classroom, I will use authentic examples from authentic text. This is because I'll be able to expose my students to high quality text with correct grammatical rules and sentence structures. Uh, and I will also encourage them to play language games because games allow them to explore ideas. Moving on to the code switching part, where I think code switching should be used, though it should be used only when it is needed because it can help to clarify questions and explain stuff. Then, technology. So, technology is a great advancement that can allow students to explore various ideas. And they can explore various ideas, and finally, technology incorporate a different way of learning to the students. Next, there are two different types of approaches, which are communicative approach and skill-based approach. Okay. Next, there are two types of approaches. First, communicative approach and skill-based approach. So, communicative approach primarily prepares the students to communicate confidently in real-life context, and skill-based approach will teach explicitly in real-life context. And moving on to the 10th point, learner's error. I think that learner's error is completely a normal thing because as a human being, they often make errors in classroom. I also see learner's error has a positive outcome because it helped me to indicate my students' understanding. And in my view, not all errors should be corrected by the teachers, and we must allow the students to know their mistakes and correct it on their own. Next, how will I address the errors? Firstly, I will address the high frequency errors such as incorrect usage of has or have in a sentence. And finally, as a teacher, I will build a good relationship with my students. This is because a positive student-teacher relationship is significant for a language classroom, and I can know my students better. Moving on to the next slide, beliefs about the program and the curriculum. There are several significant elements such as content knowledge, quality of instruction, and teachers' belief. So, content knowledge is the core element of an effective teaching because language teacher should have a deep knowledge about what they teach. And then, quality of instruction. Quality of instruction is important, which includes questioning skills and assessing skills. For example, before starting an activity, instruction should be given clear and precisely for the students to carry out the activity. And finally, teachers' belief in language theories and their role in teaching are important for the teachers to feel confident, comfortable, and creative in classroom. Next, moving on to the role of textbook. It's also critical for teacher and learner because they can learn through the textbook. Next, it is a support for classroom management. Why do I say so is because if the teacher does not prepare any materials for the students, they can use the textbook as an alternative. Next, other materials also allow purposeful engagement in class by preparing attractive materials for the students. Moving forward to instructional objective, which sets a fixed direction or the intent of the lesson. And I think it is very important to have clear instructional objectives because it will be helpful for the students, for me to assess the students, and also for others who are looking through my lesson. Next, students' needs. So I had an idea of giving my students a needs analysis form to get to know their mindset and interest before even carrying out the classroom activity. Finally, assessments. I have a very positive attitude towards assessment because it helps me to evaluate my students' strengths and weaknesses, and at the same time, I can find ways to motivate and improve their understanding. So, by knowing the assessments results, I will know which part do I have to focus and build up my student on, and it will help me to achieve an effective teaching and also determine whether I can continue my teaching style or not, or do I have to change it to a different style. Next, beliefs about language teaching as a profession. English teaching is a profession. I can categorize it in several ways, such as an English teacher with a higher level of knowledge helps students to excel in their English language, and they also require knowledge possessed from education and training. I believe that a modern change is necessary in a language teaching profession. For example, students nowadays are modern, tech savvy, as you all know. So it's important for the teachers to come up with ideas relating to the students' needs in technology. For this, I would like to specify that teachers will have to go through several trainings on how to make use of technology. Next, I also believe that training on reflectivity and reflexivity is important for the teacher to identify their mistakes and improve themselves in the future. And there are also activities carried out in Malaysia for language teachers. Firstly, English Language Teaching Center. Next, workshops, education conferences, observation visits to different schools to learn different methods, and research. Then, workshops. Teachers should also go on workshops and projects such as the professional upskilling of English language teachers. And finally, about beliefs about teaching language teaching as a profession. The most rewarding aspect that I feel um, is I get to educate and inspire others. And finally, the beliefs about role of a teacher. So, however, there are several roles that a teacher should focus on. But I believe in these three important roles, which are teacher as a learner, teacher as a facilitator, and teacher as a manager. So a teacher should be a learner to know the student's perspective to prepare better classroom activities. And other than that, a facilitator. As a facilitator, they could easily guide and instruct their students during their classroom activity. And finally, as a manager, the role of a teacher as a manager is very significant to maintain a peaceful and effective teaching and learning environment. And finally, as a conclusion, all these beliefs of a teacher will change depending on the teacher himself or herself. And that's all from me. Thank you.